Gengar is the first Pokemon you ever saw. Before the title screen loads, before you pick your starter, before the game formally begins, there is already a battle. Gengar versus Nidorino is projected onto the screen like a strange little pre-show. Game Freak chose Gengar for that slot in 1996 and never offered a technical explanation. Ken Sugimori, who designed it, has called it one of his favorites. It appears on the title screen of the franchise's first entry, grinning at you. 30 years later, it is still grinning with the same wide, flat expression across 9 generations. The grin is the tell, because everything else about Gengar has been revised, smoothed, and updated. The spikes on its back were sharper in early sprites, and its body was more angular. The anime softened it into something rounder and more immediately appealing, and later games adopted that look. But the grin stayed fixed. It stayed present on a face that registers nothing else, no matter the context. Gengar with your team, Gengar facing a legendary, Gengar in the snow, Gengar in a volcano, and Gengar in a childhood drawing all have the same grin. The Pokedex has spent 30 years trying to tell you that grin is not what you think it is. In red version, Gengar lowers the temperature of the area by nearly 10 degrees when it appears. It may be trying to steal the warmth of whoever it is with. In silver, it slips into the shadow of its prey and waits for a chance to steal its life force. Yellow adds that its broad grin and hidden fangs suggest ill humor. Emerald says it hides in shadows and snatches the life force of anyone who enters its territory. Diamond and Pearl say it haunts rooms where people sleep and steals their life force while they dream. Sun is where the franchise finally said the quiet part out loud. Gengar tries to make a new traveling companion for itself because it was once human, but that attempt ends with the other person's life force gone. Moon frames it as loneliness. Gengar was human, lost that, and has been reaching for it ever since in the only way it knows. A former human that the Pokedex spent 6 generations describing as a predator is finally explained in the 7th as grief. The human origin predates Sun and Moon by 11 years, because Mystery Dungeon built its plot around a specific Gengar who had once been a trainer. His name, before the transformation, is never given. He entered a sacred dungeon, grabbed one of Ninetales' tails, and when the curse landed, his Gardevoir moved in front of him and took it instead. The human ran, but Ninetales cursed him anyway. He was reborn 1,000 years later as a Gengar, with no memory of who he used to be, or the Gardevoir who chose to suffer for him. He carried only the shape of what he had done. For most of the game, this Gengar is the antagonist. He bullies the player's team, steals requests, and manipulates the village into exiling the protagonist. He blames them for natural disasters he knows are not their fault. By any measure, he is a petty and self-interested creature who makes other characters' lives miserable for amusement and personal gain. Then the game reveals he is the cursed human from the Ninetales legend, the one responsible for the calamity. He knew this for the entire game, and buried it under cruelty rather than face it. After the crisis resolves, the post-game includes one request posted on the board, and it is from Gengar. He wants to visit Ninetales and ask to be forgiven. The game does not show whether Ninetales grants forgiveness, or even show the conversation. You fulfill the escort request, the scene ends, and Gengar is left standing in front of whatever answer he receives. The camera looks the other way. That is where the Mystery Dungeon story leaves him. A former human who spent 1,000 years as a ghost and did everything wrong when the chance to make it right appeared. He finally turned toward the one place he had been avoiding since before the game began. The Pokedex built from that, and Sun and Moon confirmed the human origin in the main series 6 games later. Game Freak has never officially connected the Mystery Dungeon character and the main series lore. The community noticed the parallel on its own and has considered it canon adjacent ever since. Now comes the theory. Because there is one theory that has followed Gengar since Generation 1 and refuses to go away. Gengar and Clefable share a body, stand them side by side, strip the color, and the silhouettes look almost the same. They have the same round torso, short limbs, ear shape, and general proportions, even if the tail and surface details are different. Both were among the earliest Pokemon ever designed, and Gengar was called the Shadow Pokemon from the start. The community built the theory from that. Gengar is Clefable's shadow-given form. The evidence kept growing, because Clefable was normal type, Gengar was ghost type, and in Generation 1, normal and ghost had 0 interaction. They could neither damage nor affect one another, like a shadow that cannot harm the thing casting it, and the thing casting the shadow cannot harm the shadow either. Clefable retreats from humans, hides in mountains, and emerges only at night. Gengar haunts the dark places humans wander into alone, lurks in shadows, and appears under the light of the full moon. One is described as shy and gentle, while the other spends its entries stealing warmth and life from anyone nearby. Same shape, opposite everything else. In 2026, the official Valentine's Day post paired Gengar and Clefable together for a holiday about connection. They have never confirmed the theory, but posting that pair on a global account did not feel accidental to anyone watching. The fairy typing introduced in Generation 6 complicated the theory. Fairy moves can now hit ghost types and vice versa, which breaks the old symmetry argument. Some fans read that as disproof, while others read it as a retcon that closed a loophole the theory had relied on. Game Freak has made no statement either way, and the theory has survived in popular discussion for 3 decades and counting. Now comes what Mega Evolution did to Gengar, because Mega Gengar is a separate conversation. Regular Gengar is threatening in the Pokedex, but approachable in presentation. It smiles, people enjoy training it, and its competitive usage has stayed high across most generations. Ash's Gengar was abandoned by its previous trainer and presented as a sympathetic figure looking for connection. That directly echoes the Moon Pokedex entry about loneliness. Mega Gengar's Pokedex entry says it desires to curse the life of anyone and anything in its path, even the trainer who is its master, not the prey. The trainer. The ability Mega Gengar gains is Shadow Tag, and no opposing Pokemon can switch out or flee while it is in battle. You entered the field, and now you are staying. The Pokedex entry for Legends ZA says, Mega Gengar can pass through other dimensions and appear anywhere it wants. The incident it references is Mega Gengar being spotted with one leg sticking out of a wall. It looked like something that had been there the whole time, and briefly failed to hide it. The Gigantamax form pushes this to its limit. Gigantamax Gengar is enormous, with its body partly submerged into the ground and only the head and arms visible above the surface. The inside of its mouth does not lead into its body. People standing near its open mouth hear the voices of people they love calling out to them. The rumor is that the mouth leads somewhere other than a stomach. Its G-Max move traps every Pokemon on the opposing team for the duration. Something that was once human and knows what it felt like to be trapped in a form it did not choose, has evolved into a creature whose defining power is the inability to escape. The competitive history of Gengar runs across the entire franchise, and the pattern is consistent. Every time Gengar gets strong enough, something changes to limit it. In Generation 1, its base special stat of 130 made it one of the most threatening special attackers in the game. In Generation 2, Special was split into Special Attack and Special Defense, and Gengar survived the change with a lower defensive side. From Generations 3 through 6, Levitate gave Gengar immunity to ground-type moves, protecting one of its few weaknesses. In Generation 7, Game Freak replaced Levitate with Cursed Body, and the ground-type immunity was gone. Mega Gengar entered Generation 6 with 170 Special Attack and Shadow Tag. Smogon banned it from standard play within the first competitive cycle. Not restricted, not monitored, banned. Shadow Tag on a 170 Special Attack frame that could outspeed most of the tier was not a balance problem to manage. It was a ceiling the format could not accommodate. The ban held through every later generation where Mega Gengar appeared. When Mega Evolution returned in Legends ZA, Mega Gengar came back, and the competitive community began the same conversation again within weeks. The pattern with Gengar is that it keeps reaching a threshold and getting pulled back. In the lore, Gengar reaches toward humans and the reaching ends badly. In competitive play, it reaches a power ceiling and the format adjusts around it. The smile stays the same through both. Ash's Gengar in Journeys was found haunting the Cerisi laboratory, scaring researchers and causing general disruption. When Ash investigated, the backstory came out. The previous trainer had released it out of fear. The release came out of nowhere, with no explanation the Gengar could understand. It had been with that trainer, and then it was not, and no reason was given. Ash caught it, and Gengar became one of his primary battle Pokemon in the World Coronation series. It eventually competed at the Master Class level against Leon's Inteleon in a fan-favorite match. The G-Max terror sequence trapped Inteleon while Ash called the strategy. That moment was covered across competitive and casual communities. The abandoned ghost that the previous trainer released out of fear ended up in the World Championship Finals. The show did not comment on the irony because it did not need to. Gengar has been in the franchise since the beginning, sitting on the title screen before the franchise even had a stable identity. Ken Sugimori called it a favorite before the games had shipped. It has a Mega Evolution, a Gigantamax form, raids, merchandise, recurring anime appearances, and a fan theory acknowledged on Valentine's Day without being confirmed or denied. The Pokedex entries describe a former human who can no longer be warm. It lowers the temperature of any room it enters, reaches toward people in the dark, and takes from them what it lost. The anime describes an abandoned creature that kept showing up where people were until someone stopped being afraid long enough to ask what it wanted. Both versions have the same smile. The smile has never changed across 9 generations and 30 years, fixed on a face the lore says was once something else entirely. Before Ninetales, grief, or whatever made it what it is, that expression somehow became permanent. The grin and the cold in the room are the whole story. And that story has been sitting on the title screen since before anyone knew to look. There is one competitive detail worth sitting with separately. From generations 2 through 7, Gengar's base friendship value is 70. The friendship scale runs from 0 to 255, and most Pokemon start at 70. Legendaries and version mascots tend to start lower, as if the game assumes powerful or rare creatures resist bonding. Gengar starts at 72, right in the middle, the same as a Pidgey or a Machop. A creature the Pokedex describes as stealing life force, lowering room temperature, and hiding in shadows starts with the same friendship baseline as a common Route 1 encounter. The game treats Gengar as something that can form a normal bond with a trainer who invests in it. The lore treats every approach Gengar makes toward humans as catastrophic. The game and the lore have been running in parallel on this point for 30 years, and neither one has budged toward the other. Somewhere in that gap is the actual Gengar, former human, cold room, fixed smile, reaching.